don't throw Asians in there because they're a little pissed off at the Asians too. They just won't say it necessarily. It's not Asian privilege. I wonder why they're targeting math though and making it more equitable.
I don't know. Was that a rhetorical question?
I mean, I think it's.
Oh, I get it. All right, let's move on to this. This is something that the media is discussing, and they're discussing very dishonestly. Of course, I repeat myself, but this is important because I think it also draws a contrast between when people try and say, oh, the right has cancel culture as well. Look, I think cancel culture is overused. I think what we mean to convey, and this is one of those issues where I don't think we want to be reductive. I understand that sound bites work for people. What we're really discussing with cancel culture is the ruining of someone's not only life, but the removal of their livelihood for opinions that you deem impermissible. That's what we're talking about with cancel culture. We're not talking about someone being fired because they're bad at their job. We're not talking about someone who is removed from government because, I don't know, they do something illegal. That's not cancel culture. What we are talking about is the world in which we live, where you are often intimidated into silence because you know the leftist bully pulpit will try and remove your livelihood. And we see that all the time. It does not exist on both the left and the right. They've tried to say, oh, right-wingers want to ban books. Well, let me explain to you what is going on right now, and then I'll contrast it, of course, with the books that the left has banned from certain curriculum. So the Florida Department of Education just rejected 41% of new math textbooks. And the reason why, keep in mind, the key word here is math, as in mathematics. They were including things like critical race theory. They were including topics that had nothing to do with math. It was social engineering. So 41% of the books were no longer approved for the math curriculum.
I can't imagine what is in a math textbook that would indoctrinate a child.
Orange County Classroom Teachers Association President Wendy Dormel says she's baffled after learning the Florida Department of Education rejected 54 math textbooks submitted for the state's approved list. The state says the publishers attempted to indoctrinate students.
I'd really love to see some of these rejected books and see what they highlighted and found disturbing in those books.
According to the state, 41% of the submitted textbooks included references to critical race theory, Common Core, and social emotional learning. Grades K through 5 had the most materials rejected. Governor Ron DeSantis saying in a statement the publishers were, quote, indoctrinating concepts like race essentialism. State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith tweeted, saying the governor has turned our classrooms into political battlefields.
Certainly, in a math book, I can't imagine what he's talking about.
According to the DOE,
what do you mean you
textbooks are reviewed
can't
by subject every 5 years, and materials must meet Florida's benchmarks for excellent student thinking standards.
I can't even imagine. You're a big girl, a very big girl. You should use your imagination. Use your grown-up skills.
Right. You remember the thing you read? That.
Yes.
I don't know. I can't imagine.
That's you're being ableist because of my dyslexia. You're a teacher and you can't read? Problem?
It's not like all of this was new either. It's like, listen, Common Core. We said don't submit books with that. And they're like, yeah, but what about this Common Core?
Yeah, what if we submit? All right, so we'll submit Common Core. No. I'm telling you, don't submit Common Core. Right, yeah, well, we'll submit Common Core. No. So she's so perplexed as to what kind of indoctrination material could be in there. Now, this, again, shows you the lack of self-awareness on the left. People on the right now, you're watching, conservatives. Mm-hmm. You, of course, have heard the attack that conservatives want to ban books, right? You've heard the attacks that conservatives believe in censorship. They've tried. You know these attacks. You're well aware of them. I know this because when I go on campus or when I just go out in public on a street corner and do change my mind, people who are conservative are more educated on the opposition's position. This woman doesn't even know. She's saying, I can't even imagine what might be offensive. Well, that means she's not aware of the fact that there is opposition to critical race theory. There is opposition to social engineering. There is opposition to Common Core in textbooks. It means she doesn't even know that. That tells you who lives in an echo chamber. So how about, as an example, this entire program? We've covered this before. It was called A Pathway to Equitable Math Instruction. Mm-hmm. It's promoted by the Oregon Department of Education to teachers last year. One part of it is called, it's titled Dismantling Racism in Mathematics Instruction.
I thought this was math.
Yeah, well, because you forgot to, I did think it was odd when I had to carry the hood.
Well, it was from the Catholic order, Stephen.
A plus sign is a swastika that's not dancing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a swastika with a flat tire.
Exactly. That's what I've always said.
What about California? Their proposed math curriculum, their Department of Education, I'm reading a quote, mathematics education in the United States was initially structured for a narrow purpose, to prepare privileged young white men for entrance into elite colleges. A particularly damaging assessment practice to avoid is the use of timed tests to assess speed of mathematical fact retention.
The narrow focus was to teach math.
Yes, the narrow focus was to teach math. And this is another thing. I understand that back in the day when you looked at IQ tests, they were not fair because often black children did not get the same amount of instruction nor the same amount of time of instruction. That is no longer the case. And if you look at the outcomes with people who are in underprivileged areas, well, look, you can't just say that there's a correlation between a lack of spending, because there's more spending often in these bad neighborhoods. For example, Detroit, for example, Washington, D.C. They don't have good performance metrics. You can't complain about, the teachers are being paid more in many of these places. As people now are getting further and further removed from what you would consider systemic racism, the results aren't improving. You can't just keep throwing money at the problem. This is the issue that they have in California. Oh, it's because we're looking at results here, and affirmative action isn't enough. So we need to change. We need to get rid of standardized testing. We need to get rid of timed testing. Hold on a second. Maybe accept responsibility that you're bad at your job, but they can't do that. So they have to throw new bullshit into the mix. So here's critical race theory being referenced by name in Chapter 2. Because the left says it's not a real thing, critical race theory. Yeah. In the California math framework, it says rethinking teaching and learning mathematics from a critical race perspective. Where could it be less relevant? Racial theory, which, by the way, is entirely incorrect. For people who claim that conservatives are reductive, there's nothing more reductive than critical race theory. It just says, correlation, causation. Well, what about the fact that there were actually more people enslaved and taken to Africa than here in the United States? What about the millions of people, or at least 1 million people who were enslaved in the Mediterranean? What about the kind of results that you see in the UK, by the way, with underprivileged white people? And by the way, the term cracker, redneck existed before the United States was even created. What about those people who see the same kind of performance metrics sometimes as you see as black Americans? It certainly can't just be a race thing. All references are available at loudwithcrowder.com. I highly recommend that you read Thomas Sowell. He talks about this in depth. He's one of the best ever. The point is, you could not be more misguided or simplistic in your approach. And then you create an entire curriculum based on a false premise, critical race theory, and you ruin a generation of Americans. Here's another one. A proposed textbook for an Arizona district says that conservatives are more racist than liberals. And I don't think that right now we have any specific examples from Florida. That's the issue. It hasn't.
Actually, I did get a hold of one right here.
Oh, did you?
Yep. It is a math problem. You ready?
In Florida, this is one that they were.
This is one they're teaching. They
removed.
Okay. But let's see. Maybe you can get it.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Or we'll see why it's banned.
All right. If a Chinaman, it seems bad. If a Chinaman be on that platform, and the A train coming, how much bail does my boy Rel get for kicking his ass onto them tracks?
This is from Section 2, Lesson 1. No bail?
That's right.
So it's more like it's one of those, it's a brain teaser.
Yeah, you would have got A in school.
Yeah.
See, it's not that hard.
Call it my white privilege. And so this is important because you look at what's happening here. They want to teach critical race theory. They want to teach math from a racially charged perspective because, again, their goal is to divide and conquer. Great results, by the way.
Yeah.
Great results. This is something you can also see if you look at, for example, the riots that took place in Watts or in our hometown of Detroit. These riots took place, by the way, in cities where they didn't have the same kind of history of slavery. Guess what? The cities weren't destroyed in the southern United States, where they were more closely tied directly to the slave trade. Those cities were destroyed. Places like Detroit, places like Watts, they were destroyed. Guess which parts? The black parts of these cities. It wasn't just white flight in Detroit. It was all flight. Because the left constantly wants to divide and conquer. They want racially charged riots. They want, like we see now, Black Lives Matter. If that goes away, Al Sharpton, Kamala Harris are out of a job. So that's why they want to inject race. And by that, I mean racism. They want to inject racism. Critical race theory is racist. Not only is it wrong, it's racist. They want to inject that into every curriculum. So while they want to inject that and they complain when someone who's well within their authority as governor, and certainly people who work in the state legislature say, well, you know what, this is not appropriate for math. They say, oh, you want to ban books? Well, guess what? Democrats are busy banning books like To Kill a Mockingbird or Huckleberry Finn. Why? Because the N-word is mentioned in there, even though the ultimate story about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn is an anti-racist story.
Yeah.
Who's being reductive? Who's being reductive at this point? I don't know. Look, you can comment below. I do not think that it's a hypocritical position to say, you know what? Critical race theory should not be in math textbooks. And I also don't think that we should ban To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that is entirely consistent. Yeah. I do believe it is inconsistent to want to ban books simply because their historical context is offensive to you today, while demanding that we inject racism into non-sociological subjects.
Yeah. Well, and don't let the left get away with the lie that they'll tell you that the people on the right don't want you to hear about slavery, don't want you to hear about the bad choices that have been made in this country, the terrible things that have happened. No, we want all of that taught. Guess what? It is taught right now. What you're trying to do is to say all white people are bad.
Right.
All white people are privileged, and therefore you guys have to give to these other groups. By the way, don't throw Asians in there because they're a little pissed off at the Asians too. They just won't say it necessarily. It's not Asian privilege. I wonder why they're targeting math though and making it more equitable.
I don't know. Was that a rhetorical question?
I mean, I think it's.
I get it.
Fairly clear.
Yeah, something about the Asians?
No, definitely not. I would never say that. No.
I don't believe that they understand math.
No, they do not. They do not excel in the STEM field.
That's true.
That is not why Brown and Harvard are like, no more, keep him out.
Yeah, they're not known for being highly intelligent.
Asians trying to get into Stanford are like Urkel in the intro, and they're days go by.
Why do we want everything to be catered to stupidity? And I don't mean that anybody's stupid. I mean they want to keep you at that point.
Yes.
No, because that's the only result they have so far. Spending trillions of dollars over decades and decades and decades, asking for more money and better unions, and they have no results. So they have to change the goalposts. They have to move the goalposts.
I want all of the topics in history taught. By the way, just to be clear, when they say I want slavery to be taught. But I want it to be taught
the full story.
Who had the most slaves? Where were there the most amount of slaves? United States? Europe? Saudi Arabia? Right, the Middle East? Africa, particularly West Africa? Who had the most amount of slaves? A lot of people don't even understand. I want you to teach slavery, but I want you to teach that we had to end slavery uniquely because of our Constitution saying that all men were created equal. Guess what? They had slaves across South America and Brazil. There was nothing. The rest of the world didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
So there is more of a history of racism in the United States. It is true, of course, that slavery here, obviously, if you look at the Civil War, of course, was predicated on racism. But that's not why we had slaves in the first place. It's how people in the South who wanted to keep slaves, like the rest of the world, found justification in the face of the unjustifiable. We didn't bring them here under the guise of racism. They were sold. They were traded. They existed everywhere else. And then when we said, you know what, no more slaves here in the United States, there were some Southerners who said, blacks are inferior. It was to justify a practice that already existed. It's not why slavery was created, because it existed before and it still exists today. I want that taught if you're teaching slavery. And I want you to teach long division, not what Elizabeth Warren demands you teach that day.
Oh, it's also an extremely wealthy class of people that has been put onto every single shade of white, which is very aggravating.
Right.
And that should also be taught. Who was it? It's not every single person in this country did not benefit or be hurt by the same thing.
No.
That's the part that bothers me so much. The Italians, the Irish, all kinds of people that came to this country were treated like garbage.
Yeah.
Asians
were
part of the United States?
Yeah. I'm okay with the Italians.
Look, I'm part Italian, and I just think if you could just be quiet in a restaurant, maybe it wouldn't be such a problem.
And stop knocking over glasses. You don't always need to talk with your
No, I get it. Yeah, I get it. You don't have to talk like this all the time.
And a little gropey.
Yeah, very well, little.
A lot of.
Okay, that's the Cuomo brothers. So
the brothers Cuomo.
Not all Italians are like the Cuomos.
Well, like half.
Right.
All right, Fredo.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.